If you don't mind, man, just take me through that entire day from beginning to end, where the unfortunate incident happened, where you had to kill a man while protecting Snoop.
Well, hmm, my my ex-wife at that time, um, her and my son were downstairs, and they ran up the steps and said somebody's downstairs with a gun, right? So I immediately thought that Snoop had already went downstairs without me, which he never did. We always we went together. Wherever we went together. We were inseparable in the beginning. um, every time I said I wasn't gonna do this, man. You know what I'm saying? I said I wasn't gonna do this. Because every time we talk about this, I was going through something, and I remember what my wife told me a long time ago. She told me, she said, when you're ready to talk about it, then talk about it. But don't talk about it unless you're ready. And I'm thinking, like, what are you talking about? Sometimes when you go through things in life, man, and you're able to talk about your story or something that you went through, it's not about you anymore because you've made it through it. It's about somebody else. So a lot of times when I tell this story, it's not about me. It's about the people that are hearing the story. It's about the people that I believe that God is trying to reach. Because I'm nothing, man. I'm just a vessel. I'm just a messenger. And so whatever God allowed me to go through for the salvation of somebody else, then that's what my job is. That's what my job was. That's what my job will always be. So when I talk about the story, sometimes internally I get choked up because no matter what, still, irregardless of life was taken. So for me to recant this every single time, and there's no disrespect to you or anybody in the world, but all it is everybody wants to know what happened, what happened, what happened. And it's hard for real ones to talk about it. You see, real G's, we don't talk, man. We don't talk about things like that. We don't glorify negative stuff. There's no reason for it. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about this to give you hope and to give you inspiration and to educate you all on the truth. And when I mean educate you, I'm not telling you like you don't know, but to educate you on the truth. Period. So that's why when I talk about this, sometimes I get choked up because I still have to look in the mirror every day and understand why God allowed me to go through that and why there was a life that was taken. So to get back to the story, ran downstairs, and I saw who I know now who the deceased was. I saw him leaning out the window. I saw a gun, you know, and long story short, he took off. Their whole car, they took off, and um, we had to be at the studio every day at 12 o'clock. We were recording Snoop's album at the time, and you know, Snoop had Snoop went upstairs. We went upstairs. We're trying to calm everybody down, and but you have to that time in life, man. You got to understand something. It was rough because he was just coming off of Deep Cover, right? He was just coming off of that introduction of stardom. You got to look. He's probably what 19, 20, 21 years old. You know what I mean? That much attraction and attention on you. That's a lot. That's a lot. But we take all that for granted. You know what I'm saying? We take that for granted. That's something else that we'll get into later. We take all of that for granted. We don't even look at really what young athletes and young stars and young people go through. Because all the industry's trying to do is make money off you. They really don't care. They put people around you that they hope can take care of you. But you're looking at a 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old person who has no real direction, who really loves who loves you, who's really around you. And that was the difference with Death Row that nobody talk about. Y'all don't want to talk about that. You don't want to talk about the real love from the beginning. You want to talk about everything else. Or everybody want to talk about the negativity. Really, Suge was this way. Nobody was, it was love, man. They don't talk about what happened. They don't talk about us coming together and doing something that's never been done in history. You don't want to talk about that. That was real. Him embracing us, that was real. What went on in the studio, the magic, the music, the talent, that was real. And it's unfortunate that we're even here talking about the other things that happened, right? It's about life, man. And it's about sacrifice, period. Nothing else is matters in life other than sacrifice and service. Everything that people go through in their life, if you really look at it, you got to sacrifice something. You have to. But what is sacrifice? Right? Everybody thinks, well, I'm going to sacrifice this. I'm going to sacrifice this time. I'm going to sacrifice this money. In the end, I'm going to get something in return. That's not real. That's not real sacrifice. Real sacrifice is when you're willing to give up something in order to give something. That's real sacrifice. In the end, you're going to get in return. But if you're not willing to give up something to give something, that's not sacrifice. That's dictation of an ultimatum for you to benefit. But sacrifice and service, that's everything in life, period. Because it's for the people. It's for the people. I know we got off on something, man, but that's just, it is what it is. I'm sitting here thinking about this, and I'm looking at my life, and I'm looking at everything that had to do with that shooting on that day. My job and my only job in life was to protect Snoop and anybody around him. That was my job as a bodyguard. I was not from California. I was a professional bodyguard. He didn't hire me off the street. So you have to understand, first of all, what my job was before anything. And I really don't think the world really knows what it takes to be willing to do that. So the Bible says that greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for a friend. Greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life for a friend. Now, if you look at that and you compare that to every person in the world, your mother, your father, your family, everybody protects. So if everybody protects, everybody's a bodyguard. Now, I'm not telling you to go to the extreme, of course, of what I went through, but everybody protects, everybody's a bodyguard, and everybody's here to serve. Everything that we do in the industry, everything that we do in the world is about service, and service is for who? It's for the people. Because the people buy your music, the people buy your product. It's all about the people. So you're serving the people. My job was to serve the people. Snoop, I had to serve him. And my job was to protect him by any means necessary. It was just unfortunate that on that particular day, it came to that. Now, getting back to the story. The car took off. We went upstairs, tried to calm everybody down. And we're on our way to the studio. And at that time, we were using it was a DAT player, right, to record. You guys don't use that now. But back then, we were using a DAT player. And we had to turn back around and go get that DAT machine, for the hard. It was a hard drive that we were using. And as we're going back down the street, same street that we lived on, I saw this heavyset guy wave us down in the middle of the street. Now, this was the same person that was in the car that I saw. And he's waving us down, so we pull over. He starts backing up. He's like, "Hey, man, you know what? Hey, we sorry, man. He just be tripping. I remember, like I told him, he just didn't take his medication. I remember him saying they didn't take his medication. It comes to find out that he was a diabetic. And if you know anything about diabetes, if you don't take your medication and along with alcohol and things like that, you become agitated, right? And your reactions and things and your actions, the way that you act are different. That played a vital role later on with some of the facts that were really true in the case that came out later on that happened to be true. So, he waved us over and he started backing up. And as he's backing up, here comes Philip Waldemar out of the bushes. His friend grabbed him, he pushed him to the side, and when he pushed, he reached. And he reached, that's when I fired. and I saw him. I saw him run. I made the call, and when we made the call, I told him exactly what happened. I told him exactly what happened. A couple days later, when our attorneys had got back from out of town, because at that particular time, David Kennedy was in Miami at the time, and we were not going to go down there without our attorneys. So we waited a couple days and turned ourselves in. And when we turned ourselves in, I gave the statement to the police and told them exactly. But see, also what you don't know is, Suge, David Kennedy, our whole team were like, look, we're telling the truth. It wasn't nothing to hide. We weren't hiding anything. We were telling the truth. That's exactly what we did. And I told the truth. And from there on, it was what it was. I was charged with first-degree murder, and I had no bail. I sat for almost a year and a half with no bail in maximum security in a cell by myself until they gave me bail. Nobody had to go through that. Nobody knew that. Nobody knew what I went through in there. But it was just all a part of my testimony and the struggle that I had to go through for this day. If you look up death row records, or you talk about death row records from now until history, from back then, you cannot talk about death row records without talking about Snoop. You can't talk about Snoop without talking about his upbringing, his life. You can't talk about his upbringing, his life, without talking about Deep Cover. Can't talk about Deep Cover without talking about his relationship with Dre. You can't talk about that without talking about how he got there. So when you get to death row records, and Murder Was the Case, you cannot talk about that without talking about McKinley Lee. Can't. You can't talk about Snoop's career after that without talking about the man who saved his life. You can't do it. There's no way. And then again, it has nothing to do with me being prideful. It's just the truth, because you can't. How can you not talk about that? And why would you not want to talk about that? Why would you not want to talk about the situation that projected your career? Why wouldn't you want to talk about that situation?